Alfa Romeo are remaining rigid with their stance on flexible rear wings, while Aston Martin are thinking about splashing the cash to put some wind in their sails for the future. This is the news in F1, brought to you by GPFans, and remember to hit that subscribe button to have all the latest Formula 1 news and views mainlined directly to your petrol-filled veins. Now, let's get into all the talking points in F1 this Tuesday. Alfa Romeo team principal Fred Vasseur has slated the FIA's decision to introduce new rear wing tests, describing it as a joke that will cost the team a fortune. From the French Grand Prix onwards, motorsport's governing body is due to introduce new regulations surrounding the rear wings due to the flex nature of the component on the cars of a number of teams, including Red Bull, Ferrari, Alpine and Alfa Romeo. Mercedes is pushing for the changes to come into effect from the next race in Azerbaijan, otherwise it has suggested legal action may be required. Vasseur is far from happy with the proposed changes, due to the upheaval and in particular, the costs involved. At the end of the day, we have the regulation with the maximum deformation and the load, said Vasseur. We're not any more clever than the others. Everybody was sticking to the limit and the FIA decided to change the limit. It's a bit surprising they have changed the load and deformation in the course of the season. It's not the introduction of a new test or a new way to do the test, it's that they changed the value. And this, for me, if I remember right, is the first time we've seen something like this. If you're at the limit, if you've done a good job, you now have to produce new wings. And in terms of cost saving, it's a huge effort. Alfa Romeo are now questioning the extra advantage that Red Bull are gaining from their rear flexi-wing. Asked to the amount of work and resource required, an annoyed Vasseur added, "We will have time to do it, but it will cost us a fortune." Honestly, we are all fighting to save money to reduce about one person on track, and then we have these kinds of things? It's just a joke. Despite suggestions Red Bull's rear wing could provide them with an advantage of around 0.6 of a second per lap in Baku, Vasseur does not believe this to be the case. Honestly, it could be marginal, said Vasseur. We did a back-to-back comparison a couple of times and the difference was not huge. But it's not about this concern. It's that why next week we won't change the weight of the car because one team is not able to reach the limit. I'm a bit upset with the approach to change the rules. The introduction of a new test is a different thing. But to change the value of the test, it is not fair at all because the business of the engineers and designers in F1 is to design parts at the limit of the regulation. Elsewhere around the paddock, Aston Martin team principal Otmar Szafnauer has dismissed criticism the team would be wasting its money and time in building its own wind tunnel if a ban is introduced in 2030. As part of its environmental initiatives from the next decade moving forwards, and in an additional bid to cut costs, the FIA is looking into the possibility of outlawing such facilities. It is understood an F1 wind tunnel uses around 10,000 kilowatt hours per day. For comparison, that is the same as an average family house per year. Aston Martin is currently using Mercedes' 60% scale tunnel after switching before the start of last season from the old 50% Toyota model it had used for many years. But with the greater resources, it is now considering the construction of its own tunnel, even though it could be made redundant in 9 years' time. "We are putting plans in place at the moment to build a tunnel," insisted Szafnauer. "Aerodynamics are still a big differentiator in our sport, and to have your own tunnel is advantageous. Or to not have your own tunnel can be disadvantageous. Maybe that's the right way to say it. So right now we are seriously considering the build of a tunnel and we will probably kick it off soon. The 2030 question, if we get it done in a couple of years' time, there is still a decent period of time to get use from a new tunnel. It is anticipated to have a tunnel online would take 2 years, further limiting such use of its own tunnel." But a defiant Szafnauer added, "Here we are in 2021, so say by the middle of 2023 we have our new tunnel up and running, 6.5 years to use it. It would be worthwhile. So while the two at the top can afford to fight over flexi wings, how detrimental are the FIA's new tests and the possible changes to cars going to be for the smaller teams further down the grid in such a cash-stripped season? Let us know in the comments section below, and hit the subscribe button, of course, to stick with us as we build up to the big race in Baku this weekend here on GPFans.